There is a scroll in Jerusalem under a white dome that plans the end of the world like a military campaign, not a vision, not symbols, a schedule. It names who attacks first. It lists which nation falls in year 1 and which in year 2. It dictates the words to engrave on the war trumpets, the length of every shield, the age of every soldier in every row. 40 years of warfare, planned down to the lettering. And in its very first column, it does something almost no war document in history dares to do. It orders the army of God to lose. 3 of the final 7 battles, written in as defeats in advance. This is real. It is 2,000 years old. It is called the War Scroll. And you can stand in front of it tomorrow. I am going to walk you through the plan, the way a soldier would read it. And the question under the whole thing is the one I cannot shake. Who writes their own defeat into the script? You decide. It is a manual. The people who wrote it called it the rule of war. And you read a war manual the way a soldier does, in order. It came out of the ground in 1947 by accident. A Bedouin shepherd threw a stone into a cave above the Dead Sea, near a ruin called Qumran, and heard pottery break instead of nothing. Inside stood tall jars, and inside the jars, scrolls wrapped in linen, dry and whole after 2,000 years. The first of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This was one of the 7 that came out of that first cave. Its official name is 1 Qumran. Cave 1, and M for Milamah, the Hebrew word for war. And the date it was bought is one you might recognize. The 29th of November, 1947, the night the United Nations voted to partition Palestine, the night a real war began. A professor named Eleazar Sukenik sat up reading a battle plan for the end of the world, while outside his window crowds were celebrating the start of an actual one. So hold one object in your head: 9 feet of parchment, 19 columns of Hebrew copied around the time of Herod, 1 generation before the Gospels. That is the plan. Open it. Column 1 is the declaration of war. In Geza Vermes's translation, it opens as the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. And then it names the enemy, not demons, not monsters. A target list with addresses: Edom, Moab, Ammon. And behind them the real heavyweight, the Kittim, the name most scholars read as Rome. So the final war of the world opens as a campaign against a real empire on a real map. And the scroll says the day of the first battle was fixed from ancient times. Heaven set the date. The plan just fills in everything underneath it, which leaves the question every soldier actually asks, not why. When? Column 2 answers, and it is the strangest military document I have ever read. The war runs exactly 40 years. The first 6, all Israel fights together. Then year 7 arrives and nothing happens. The war stops because the 7th is a sabbatical year and the law says the land has to rest. The end of the world pauses for the Sabbath. Then it picks back up, nation by nation, following the family tree of the nations in Genesis, 1 year assigned to each. Add up all the rest years, and 11 of the 40 are scheduled downtime. The apocalypse had days off. Then the manual gets specific in a way no vision ever bothers to. Start with the trumpets. Priests run the entire battle by trumpet blast, and the scroll dictates what to engrave on each one. On the trumpets that summon the army, the called of God. On the trumpets blown during the killing, a whole sentence. The mighty hand of God in war shall cause all the slain to fall, word for word. An inscription drafted in advance, for an instrument nobody had cast yet, for a battle with no date. That is not a dreamer, that is a quartermaster. Then the weapons, measured to the finger. The shield, 2.5 cubits by 1.5. The lance, 7 cubits. The sword, 1.5 cubits long and 4 fingers wide. 4 fingers. Someone writing about the end of the world stopped to standardize the width of a blade. And when a soldier named Yigael Yadin studied these specifications, he recognized them. The full-body shield, the tight battle line, cavalry on the wings, fresh ranks rotated through the front. This was the model of a Roman legion. They had copied the war science of the very empire they were planning to destroy. Then the men. The front line is not made of young men. It is men 40 to 50 years old, and the officers older still. No teenagers anywhere. The apocalypse was a job for veterans. And no one impure could set foot in the camp, no sick, no blemished, and the reason rewrites the whole thing. The camp had to stay clean, the scroll says, because the holy angels are marching with the army. The angels are not watching from the clouds. They are in the ranks, which produces the single most human sentence in any apocalypse ever found. The scroll orders the latrine dug 2,000 cubits from the camp, over half a mile. Because you do not put a toilet next to angels. Nobody writes sanitation distances for a metaphor. And then the last battle, 7 rounds, and the text tells you the score before it begins. In Vermes's translation, in 3 lots the sons of light shall brace themselves, and in 3 lots the army of darkness shall gird itself to push back the company of God. 3 rounds won, 3 rounds lost. By design on the page, the scroll prescribes its own retreats with the same flat calm it used for the latrines. And the 7th round, with the 7th lot, the mighty hand of God shall bring down the army of darkness, not the soldiers, not the priests with their trumpets, not even the archangel. The hand of God in person ends the war in round 7. The commander it names is Michael, the Prince of Light, leading the armies of heaven, a scheme scholars trace straight back to the visions of Daniel. Now look up from the desert, because this did not stay in the desert. If there is a Bible in your house, open the New Testament. Paul, writing to the Thessalonians, "You are all sons of light." 1 Thessalonians 5:5. John's Gospel reaches for the same phrase. The signature line of a desert war manual sitting in the book on your shelf. And then the book of Revelation. Michael and his angels at war with the dragon. Trumpets sounding the stages of the end. A last battle decided not by armies, but by the direct power of God. Every beat of it is already here, in the war scroll, a century earlier. The Armageddon you grew up picturing had an equipment list before Revelation was ever written. So is it a real battle plan or a prayer? The serious scholars split. Yigael Yadin, who knew real armies, read it as a genuine military document. The gear is real gear. The logistics hold together. Others, like Philip Davies, read it as theology in a uniform, a liturgy of hope for a powerless community that never expected to fight it. Priests run every move. The war halts for Sabbath years. No real army was ever built from men aged 40 to 50, taking orders only from priests, with angels in the formation. And honestly, the text feeds both readings at once. Too military to be only a prayer, too holy to be only a plan. But one fact sits outside the whole debate. The war came. In the year 66, Judea rose against Rome, against the literal Kittim, and around the year 68, the Roman army reached the Dead Sea, and Qumran was destroyed. The community that wrote this scroll and copied it and updated it for generations was wiped out by the exact empire its plan had scheduled for destruction. They fought their war against the Kittim in their own lifetime, and they lost. No seventh lot came. The scroll survived in its jar because no one was left alive to come back for it. And that is the loose end I cannot tie, and nobody else has either. The scroll prescribes defeat. 3 losses in writing in a document its own authors treated as the plan of God. A liturgy does not need scheduled losses. Propaganda would never confess them. Every other war text from the ancient world promises total victory. This one builds in failure 3 times before the rescue, as if the people who wrote it already knew from their own history that the light loses and loses and loses, and the only round that ever counts is the one no human gets to fight. So the scroll rests in Jerusalem tonight, under a dome built in the shape of the jar lid that kept it alive for 2,000 years, bought on the night one war began, decoded later by a man who had just helped fight another, describing a third that never came. Impatient, numbered, year-by-year order, 40 years of war, 11 years of rest, engraved trumpets, measured latrines, 3 defeats, and 1 miracle. None of this is hidden. The scroll is behind glass in the Israel Museum. The phrase, Sons of Light, is sitting in your New Testament right now. You can check every piece of it tonight. That is where the real investigation starts. Not in the fantasy, in the archive. And maybe the truest line in the manual is the one no column ever records. The 7th battle was never assigned to men. The deeper you go into these buried books, though, the stranger the questions get. Next time, not a war, but a creator. There are gospels that were buried in a jar in Egypt that say, the God who built this world is not the real God. That he is a lesser thing, a counterfeit, and that the true Father is hidden far above him. You decide.